Yo, welcome into another episode of Capturing the Game. That's the Game Within the Game podcast featuring me, your host, Desmond Jones, and my man's one and only, Jawan Polo Man Stewart. Today, we got another special guest in the building, but before we get into it, I just want to remind the audience and folks and listeners that Capturing the Game is presented by Capture Sports Agency, where the CEO and founder is Chantel Smith-Jones. We appreciate all the likes and subscribes on all the social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. You can follow us at CTG_podcast on all your social media platforms. And you can also find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, whatever your favorite podcast platform is, you can find us on there. Now that the introductions are out the way, let's go ahead and talk about today's guest. Today, we bring to you the Julie DiCaro, senior writer and editor of Deadspin. Julie, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Great. We're great.
We're doing good. We're doing good. I got an injured wife. So, after this podcast, I'm about to figure out what's going on with her.
Look,
Get some ice.
Ankles do not belong on the human body. It's the worst invention by far.
Oh my goodness.
Between
it's up
that
there with
knees,
like belly buttons.
That belly.
There's just no purpose. The worst thing is like once you hurt your ankle, like you can hurt your ankle again, like laying in bed. Like, oh, the sheet got caught and I twisted my ankle. Like it's just it's they're the worst. They never go back to as good as they were ever.
That's true. That is true. I give you that one. I give you that.
That is true. Like it's like recurring injury.
Yep.
But it's better to hear the stories of how people sprain their ankles, because like especially if you're not like in sports or something, you just say, "Oh, I was walking and my ankle just gave out." But like, what you mean? It just gave out.
I did this once on my radio show and people were calling in and one guy was like standing in line for barbecue and blew out his knee at like a county fair. He's like, he had to have it reconstructed completely.
I need to say, I'm tired of waiting. I'm done.
The knee tapped out before anything else did.
Jeez, man.
No, it's funny, talk about just non-sports injuries, especially when regular day, everyday people like us, and then next thing someone show up and work in the cask. Like, what happened to you? Oh, I fell off my roof. Yeah. What were you doing on your roof? So
yeah. You got a lot of those. You got a lot.
Stepping off a curb is a huge one too. Like I stepped off a curb.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Blew out my ACL.
Yeah. Or the ones, when you're cutting the grass and you hit the little pothole in your grass, the whole ankle just done for you. Oh, man.
You ever cutting the grass like this? All right, but Julie, go ahead, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
I'm a writer now, which is a career that I've only had a short time. I did a lot of stuff. I started out in law and then I transitioned to blogging, and then worked my way into radio. And I was a lawyer in there somewhere. And then and now I'm doing what I think a lot of people are doing, which is just sort of like the gig economy thing. Like I wrote a book, I do a podcast, I write for Deadspin, which seems to be the way that sports, especially media, is going these days, that you sort of try to cobble together like 4 different jobs into one regular job.
Makes sense. So tell us about the book. I mean, we seen it just in March, right? It came out in March.
Yeah, it came out in March. So the book was a result of my constant screaming into the void on Twitter, and which I still do to this day. But I had a guy from a publishing house reach out to me and say, instead of just putting all this on Twitter and yelling, all day, have you thought about putting it into a book? And I really hadn't at that point. And I didn't think I really had anything to say that anybody would want to read, but I was really lucky in that, reaching out to other women who work in the industry, women like Jamel Hill, who else is in the book? Imani McGee-Stafford, he's playing the WNBA, is in there. Kendall Coyne-Schofield, who's on the U.S. Olympic hockey team. Just all these fantastic women, Soledad O'Brien, all talked to me about their experiences in the industry. A lot of them were good. Some of them were not so good. And we just sort of talked about what it's like to be a woman in sports media today, and how that is sort of a microcosm of what it's like to be a woman in America and around the world today, that so many of the issues that we deal with in this country, we deal with in sports first. I mean, baseball integrated before America integrated. And, we had the Black Lives Matter movement last summer, and continuing on, and sports obviously played a huge role in that. So I think a lot of the issues, social and racial issues that we deal with in this country, we work through them in sports. And I feel like we're having one of those moments with gender right now, among a lot of other things.
It's interesting that you say that, because just thinking about it, a lot of the stuff that kind of brings us together in some regards is sports. It's kind of weird how that all comes back full circle. It's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, it does. But I think in some ways too, like, we watch very differently. Like, I think that if you're a woman and you're watching a game and there's a guy out there who's been accused of violently beating his wife or raping someone, it affects how you watch the game. And I think the same thing for, what if you're, a member of the LGBTQ community and there's someone out there who is, racially thrown around a racial slur. Right. And of course, we all know thrown around a homophobic slur. And then we all know what happened, the way Colin Kaepernick was treated in the NFL. So, when people say, like, stick to sports, I only want to hear about sports, I don't want politics. I think that's a very narrow demographic that is able to do that. It's basically white men. And the rest of it is, the rest of us are like stuck here trying to, like, get the leagues to behave better and in America to do better. And, one of the ways we do that is through sports.
True. And it's weird too, I guess this is an interesting time to kind of be a sports fan too, because you got a lot of the sexual abuse and just assault stuff that's been going on that it's like it's never been talked about in the sense of on this grander scale. And there's, the great players that are doing it. And it's like, well, we don't want to take away the great players because that's revenue and money. But it's like, you just can't be out here beating your wife or your girl or a pregnant lady for, all that for that matter. And it's like, when do we put back to draw on the line of the human, people are human beings at the end of the day, but there's consequences that have to be paid as well. I think.
I completely agree. And it's a really weird thing that we're sort of asking leagues to do, because what we found is a place where the justice system hasn't stepped up. And so we're asking leagues to step up and punish people, which is, I mean, I used to be a public defender. I'm not like just okay with, allegations mean that it happened, and that you can just toss it out there and, the guy, is done for his career. Like, so it's really tough. And I think it's a tough line for the leagues. It's tough for the players. It's tough for the fans to try to figure out, how much punishment is enough? Like, when has someone earned a second chance? When is there enough evidence that we should think that this actually happened? It's a really difficult situation for everyone involved. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't ask sports leagues to do this because our criminal justice system would be handling it, but they're not. So here's where we are.
Now, let me ask you this. I've been curious. I want to hear it from since you're more in that sphere. Mm-hmm. So it's always that first, right? So, like, if you look at the Colin Kaepernick of the world, the Ray Rice, the Michael Vick, that first thing to do anything, like, it seems like they get the brunt of it, but then afterwards, the people that are after that kind of get a little slap on the wrist. But the person that took the initial hit, they get all the backlash. They get all of it. Like, at the end of the day. Why do you think that is?
I think that, a lot of it is PR, that there's this, it's just like with prosecutors, the league's like, oh, we have this new policy. We're going to make an example out of this guy. We're going to make an example. Yeah. No one's ever going to do this again once they see. But, it always starts to fall away once everybody's not looking at it. I mean, the NFL is supposed to be, 6-game baseline if you, violate the domestic violence policy. Right. But we saw Josh Brown get one freaking game, and there was 20 years of evidence of abuse. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I just think that leagues do this stuff because they think they have to. I'm sure there's some people involved that really do care about this, but, by and large, I think that they would rather not do this. They just want to do football and make money, and that's it, and I'm talking about the owners in the league, not necessarily the players.
Yeah, of course.
And anything that detracts from that is just not anything they're interested in, and nor are they qualified or trained to do it in any way. So it's just kind of messed up for everybody involved.
It is. the one thing that I'm looking forward to hopefully start changing more and more, this is somewhat off topic, is just like the ownership. We need more minority owners in these leagues, because it's 98.9 white men that's been running these leagues for the past 40, 50 decades, depending on the sport, or sure, even if you go back to baseball, say past 100 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that one of the things that's so frustrating is that every time we have a labor issue, the fans seems like always side with the billionaires over the athletes. And there's this feeling, I think, especially among white people, that it's sort of like, well, they earned their money, they're billionaires, but these guys, they're just lucky they can play football, or God knows what they'd be doing. And it's sort of like, these guys didn't earn their money either. Like, how do you say that a guy who like inherited his wealth earned it, but a guy who goes out there every Sunday and puts his body on the line and risks CTE and all that kind of stuff didn't earn it? And that's a thing that really drives me crazy. And I feel like we're already starting to see that with MLB, with people already complaining about the players being greedy. Like, nobody's greedier than billionaires. What are you blaming the players for?
Right. And that's something too, I think, that as fans, I think some fans don't see. I'm always the person that kind of leans I want to hear both sides, but from the owner's perspective, they always want to baseline make more money. That's just what it is.
Right.
From a player's perspective, it's like, okay, me being a former athlete, like I get like, okay, I want extra perks too if I retire at this age or this time. Like that, incentive wise, it makes sense. Like, you want to make sure you're getting the bang for your buck as well. You want a piece of the pie as well. So it's always that give and pull, but it seems like, especially with this MLB thing, this is definitely, I think, going to be, this may be one for the long haul in some regards, the way it's looking currently. They got some time.
At the end of the day, it's a wealth transfer, right? From rich white people to largely minority groups. And I think that is at the bottom, the base of what bothers people about it so much. And I kind of love that, it's happening. It's funny to watch people get so upset about it.
So, okay, let me ask you, this is just thinking about that. So what if it was an all-white league and all-white owners, and we had a labor issue? Would you think there would be that much of an outcry or an issue?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Look, I've heard so many people say, like, oh, that guy's so lucky he can hit a baseball, or else he would be, he'd be in the poorhouse or whatever. But no one ever says that about billionaires. No one's ever like, wow, Tom Ricketts is so lucky his dad started a Ameritrade, or he'd be, the Ricketts are some of the worst people around, and fans will side with them over these players that they supposedly love. And I've thought about it a lot. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and all we can come up with is that there's, a class and a racial component to this that we need to work through as a society. It's not fun.
It's not.
There it is.
There it is. Drop the mic in the episode right now.
There it is.
But so Julie, you've worn many different hats. So do you have like a personal hat, a favorite hat that you wore? So you've worked in radio, you've been a lawyer, now you're being a writer. Like, what's like amongst these different stages of your career, what's been your favorite?
I think I'm a writer at heart, at the bottom of everything. I loved being a public defender. I think someday I may go back and do it again. Because it is a job that, first of all, it is fun. It doesn't sound like it would be fun, but it is tons of fun. You have great camaraderie with people you work with. You get to meet wonderful people, and you feel like it's worthwhile every day you get out of bed with a purpose. And especially if you work in a county like the one I did, where the prosecution was just horrible. It was fun every day to get up and feel like you were the rebel who was just going in there to like fuck shit up. Can I say that? Can we swear in here?
You can swear on here.
Okay, good. I think I'm a writer, but I really miss radio. I really miss, especially like after a really bad Bears game, I really miss just like opening the phone lines and just commiserating with people about how bad the Bears are. That is really fun. And I grew up listening to sports talk radio and talk radio in Chicago. And I absolutely love that medium. So I think if I had to pick one thing, it would probably be writing. But after that, it gets tough to choose.
Yeah, I get that. And I do understand, as a listener of the station, the Bears Monday after a real bad game, funny, hilarious calls, some all-time classical ones in there for sure.
Well, y'all done had a lot of bad those, so that's
we have.
We,
there's no hiding that.
might as well just just keep them coming.
Those days when like radio feels like the world's biggest sports bar or the city's biggest sports bar, you know, I mean, those are the most fun days. Or like when you just come up with a random topic, like, you know, non-sports injuries, and then everyone starts calling in. One day we did like your favorite childhood game. And then we just wound up marveling at how violent we all were as children. And that's what we wound up talking about for like 2 hours, was just like someone in my neighborhood their parents put this huge pile of dirt in their yard. It was like 12 feet tall. And we decided we were going to play King of the Mountain on our bikes. So you had to be on your bike when you got like thrown off the top of this. And we were like 7 and we're playing with like 14-year-olds. So we're just getting tossed all over the place. I'm just like the 80s, man. There was nothing like it. We were completely unsupervised. We had no safety equipment. Someone's telling me about a game where you line all your friends up against the wall and throw a hard ball at them as hard as you can. It's just,
yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I miss talking about.
Yeah, those are the days.
Yeah. Right.
Thinking back to childhood.
But you guys are younger than me. Like I'm telling you, in the 80s, there was no supervision whatsoever. We were just, you're gone for like 12 hours. Your parents are like, I don't know where she is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. Yeah, I mean, in my era, I mean, we had some. We did some things, as you know, we played rocks, throwing rocks at things that we shouldn't have been throwing rocks at.
Did you guys have to wear bike helmets?
I'll see. I know this is I would just say this. People don't know this about me, but I don't know how to ride a bike. So,
what?
I'm one of those kids.
Every kid I see out in the suburbs riding a bike has a helmet on. Like we never would have worn a helmet. You would have been laughed off the block if you had to ride your bike in a helmet.
Gosh. Yeah. I'm the kid that needs 4 wheels or 3.
That's okay. 3 is fine.
Car. You know, I wanted a car from, you know, I was that kid that I was bougie when I was a kid. Like I was like, hey, put 2 more wheels on there. I need the 2-wheel car. I need that one. I want a
little
car,
electric car, drive it around.
Yeah. I don't want the bike. Yeah. So yeah,
I'm just amazed right now that you grew up, and I'm just now finding, this is breaking news right now, by the way, that Juwan doesn't know how to ride a bike. I'm really appalled right now.
See, these are those great spontaneous moments you get in radio and nowhere else.
Let me rephrase, okay? I learned, okay, and I fell off the bike twice. I said, I'm good. I don't need to keep falling for me to learn how to ride the bike at that point. I'm good. If I have 4 wheels, I know I'm stable. As a young kid, I understood the logic of stability. When I seen the car drive by, it didn't flip over. So I'm like, hey, why do I need to have a bike? Give me 4 wheels. So I couldn't wait to drive. I was that 6-year-old kid, like, hey, can I have a car? Do I get a car? I need a car. Like, that's me. That was who I was. So, you know, hey, it is what it is. I ain't tripping.
I'm stressed. So, like, you not once be like, yo, let me go ahead and ride my bike over to my homies house. Like,
I will walk. I'll walk. I'd rather walk.
You never ride around with a basketball on your bike, you know, just go to like a court to court.
I'll walk.
You know.
I was walking everywhere. I was in shape. I was good. Like I was great.
I'll deal with this man afterwards. All right.
That was great. Like, you know what I mean?
I'll deal with this man afterwards. But so talk to us a little bit about being a public defender. Like, do you have a favorite story that you have for being a public defender?
God, I have so many of them.
I'm about to say you probably got a lot of those.
Yeah. Well, we used to have a list on of all the clients we had with famous names. I mean, that was pretty hilarious. Like I'd have like Jose Cuervo as a client, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of stories, including one client who attacked me in court because she thought I was a witch because I have red hair.
Wow.
She wasn't fit to stand trial, but
okay.
And another guy who wasn't fit to stand trial, but he, and his name was Jesus, and he wore an entire Cubs jersey, like the whole uniform, like not just like the cleats, the high socks, everything.
He thought he was a player.
Yes. He also thought he was Jesus because his name was Jesus. And so he was number 1, of course, because what other number would you be when you're Jesus and you play for the Cubs? So we were trying to set a date, you know, to have him evaluated. And he said to the judge, and it was one of the greatest judges I've ever been in front of. He said to the judge, you know, I can't be here that day. And the judge was like, well, why? What do you have going on? And he said, we have a road trip. that day. We're playing the Cardinals in St. Louis. And the judge is like, oh, and the judge gets out his pocket calendar, and the two of them are sitting there, like putting their heads together over the bench, like trying to figure out when he's free, like when the Cubs are in town, when they have an off day, that he could come and be evaluated. And stuff like that happens in misdemeanor court, like all the time. Like, that's what the best thing about being a public defender is when you're in misdemeanor court, like nothing truly terrible ever happens. Nobody's going to jail for a long time. Nobody's like, nobody's dead. It's all just stupid stuff mostly. And it's hilarious a lot of the time. I hate 2 people that got arrested at Sybaris. Do you guys have Sybaris out there where you are?
I don't think so.
One of those like couples hotels that have like pools and heart-shaped beds and everything in them.
No, we got
all right, so it's that's what it is. It's like they're like Sybaris suites for you and your lover, and it's like,
oh yeah, no,
they show people going down a water slide, and everything. It's one of those kind of things. But 2 people there got arrested for whipping frozen hamburger patties at each other, and
wow.
Yeah, they came in and they were both just covered in like hamburger-sized bruises, which really isn't funny, but I mean, it was kind of funny.
So wait. Did Jesus get what did he get? What was his punishment?
I mean, I think he wound up being committed involuntarily to a facility where they could better attend to his needs as a player and as Jesus.
He had double duty. He had double duty.
I mean,
man.
It's a lot of pressure.
Of course.
I mean, it's the kind of stuff that like it's sad, but it's also, if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry. And so there's a lot of those moments where you're just sort of, I can't believe this is a real thing. I feel like Night Court, you guys are probably too young to ever watch Night Court, but it was a sitcom that took place in like evening bond court. And I feel like it was the most accurate portrayal of being a public defender I've ever seen.
Oh my God. I'm sitting here trying to I'm envisioning this man with a whole Cubs outfit on, and he's saying that he's Jesus. I can't that's just
it doesn't surprise me.
But I mean, hey, like those people need someone to be on their side, right? I mean, no matter who you are, you need someone on your side. Yeah. I really believe that. And I really believe in giving people the best possible defense, no matter what they're accused of. So it was a job that, you don't want someone who's going to represent Jesus, who's going to just, throw him in jail and lock away the key. That's not where he belonged. So, it feels like my job. I'm here to make sure that you're taken care of the way you should be taken care of. And people say all the time, like, how could you represent criminals? It's like, well, it's not like I was saying they didn't do it, or I was trying to get them off. I was trying to make sure that the system worked the way it was supposed to, and that the prosecution did their job. And that I think is a really important job. And public defenders are superheroes as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that. I do. Switching gears a little bit, going back to sports for a little bit. So when you did your book, was there anything that stood out to you from hearing the different people's experience in the industry, or was there anything that was like, I'm not really surprised that happened to you at all?
I think that the biggest thing was that I think so many of us that are the only woman in the room in a lot of different outlets, I was shocked by how similar our experiences were and how people use the same like gaslighting techniques against us. So, like if you're getting, you're being harassed on Twitter and it's like, well, get off Twitter, or women who say, the men I work with never share my work, never retweet my stuff, they'd never include me in anything. I think that a lot of us always feel like we're the only ones that are being treated that way. And it's because of something you did. And when you talk to so many other women, from super, super successful women like Jamel Hill and Andrea Kramer, down to women who sort of work behind the scenes and aren't really publicly known, the fact that we've all had such similar experiences, I think, was really comforting. To know, like, it's not just me. It's not something that I'm doing wrong, that there's women all across the country having the exact same experience as me. And that really was surprising to me.
So I guess, how was it working? You said you worked with Jamel Hill or heard from her?
She was in the book. Yeah. She talked to me for the book. Yeah.
Got you. How was that, I guess?
I mean, she's great. Jamel is always, she's, I think, one of the most generous people in sports media, probably media in general. She, I got to meet her when we were on a panel together at Andrea Kramer's symposium in Boston. And we stayed in touch. And every time I've asked her, to come on a podcast, to come on my show, to contribute to a book, like she always says yes. And I think those people are so rare and so few and far between, especially with someone who's as busy as Jamel. I feel like every time I turn around, she's doing something else. She's got some other announcement for something she's producing or involved in, or, she's going to be speaking here or whatever. So, the fact that she gives her time to so many different people, I think is really incredible. And, I try to take a cue from her and try to be as available as she is. And I think that she is a really important voice, and I value her honesty. I value her courage. I mean, there's been days when she has, she's always just spits truth on Twitter, but there's plenty of times when, she's the number one trending topic and everyone's just, talking about how much they hate her. And I've reached out to her and said, like, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I hope you're okay. And she's just like, oh, this is Tuesday for me. She is so unfazed. She's so confident in herself and her abilities. Everyone I know who's worked with her is like, she's the smartest person I know. And, I just really, I think she's younger than me, but I actually, I look up to her. I think she's incredibly brave, and she gives me courage to say things when I know I'm going to get backlash for it. So she is someone whose voice I value tremendously.
So I guess let's talk about that as a writer, and kind of living on that edge, and, this whole cancel culture thing,
Mm-hmm.
or just the whole thing of, you say anything now that's slightly out of pocket or out the way, if not with the main consensus of everybody, you gonna get backlash. I mean, how do you navigate that?
Not that well. I think that the key, and one of the things I have learned, and I will say this, that, I look back at some of the stuff I said when I first got on Twitter, or even after I'd been on Twitter a few years, before I really started following a lot of people who have very different experience than I do. And it's just sort of cringy. And it's just like, oh my God, how much more of like a clueless white woman could you be? But I think that it's really important to make sure that you diversify who you're following on social media, because I have learned viewpoints and I look at things completely differently because of what other people have said that I never thought of. So I think that one of the things is, when you're getting backlash, and if you're in the public eye in any way, everybody does, you're inevitably going to say something that's going to be stupid or misinterpreted or tone deaf, or, maybe even mean spirited or nefarious. And I think that the first thing to do is to try to decide, to look at what you said instead of just knee jerking to defending yourself and apologizing if it's something that you got wrong. Now, one of the things I hate about Twitter particularly is that there is just no room for nuance in like 280 characters. And you don't often get a chance to try to explain yourself. I think we've created this sort of toxic culture where it's like you get one thing wrong and now you're no longer a person worth knowing or worth interacting with. And that I think is rough. But I think, for a lot of us, I think taking long breaks from Twitter is something that I see more and more people doing. I was off for about 6 to 8 weeks from the summer going into the fall. And it was a tremendous time of healing and not stressing out every day about whether or not people were going to come for me. But, there's also a lot of disingenuous criticism on Twitter too. And so I think that when people are criticizing you, you need to sort of ask where they're coming from. Are they coming from a place of sincerity? And if they are, they usually give you some grace. And if they're not, then, I guess it was nice knowing you. I'll try to do better. Good luck with your life. And I think that's really all you can do.
Yeah, I encourage people, and I haven't done it myself lately, but I encourage people when you get a chance to take a break from social media, just because of how much it impacts you. Like, you don't really know until you take a step away from it, until you remove yourself from it. And it impacts our lives. Like, we kind of live around it. I forget what the average number is, how many times we pick up a phone a day, but just the fact that, like, do yourself a favor, like, just move the app, just move the Twitter from where it used to be, and watch what happens to you.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is so weird about it is that when you're in it, you feel like it's the world, like this is what's happening in the world. And then when you step away from it, you realize that people don't spend their entire day on Twitter, don't know about any of this stuff that you think is so important that everyone cares about. Right. Like, they're like, what the hell is this blue white dress thing? What is, I mean, people just don't know. And in Twitter, it's like, what do you mean? What was the llama chase? Everybody knows about the llama chase. Or whatever the Twitter person of the day. It's just not the real world, even though it feels like it. And unfortunately, if you work in media, everyone else in your industry is in it too. So you feel like you have to be there. But I think you're right. Like, to the extent that you can step away, it's really healthy to do so.
Yeah. What type of advice would you give to your younger self now that you've been in the industry for so long? What's something that you would give back to your younger self?
I think that's a great question. I think specifically, I wish that I had had the confidence in my 20s that I have in my 40s, that, not taking, I took a lot of bullshit from a lot of people because I just didn't have the confidence to say, you're not allowed to do that. And I think that especially if you're a person who's part of a marginalized group, and in the sports world, that definitely includes women, you get this attitude where it's like, I'm just lucky to be here. And I just have to keep my head down and stay quiet and not speak up and not rock the boat. And nothing changes if we all decide to do that. So, and I see a younger generation coming behind me that is much more vocal, much less willing to put up with bullshit, and asks for what they want and call people out when they behave badly. And I think that's a really great thing. I wish I had come to that earlier in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that too, because sometimes I wish that, like, sometimes I get a little timid in certain spaces, I would say, and and I would shrink my voice and I may not stand up, but it just, some days I'd be like, all right, F it, like, we just gonna tell them how it is, we gonna let them know what it is, and what's gonna happen. So I get that. I think with this younger generation, looking from they're a lot bolder in some areas for good for good reasons and bad reasons. Like, they don't hold no punches, they have no shame. They will say stuff with no facts, but they will still say it. And this is interesting watching this, this younger generation. I'm saying that like I'm super old, but it's just it's interesting.
Look, to say it, you old.
I'm semi old. It's not even 9 o'clock. I'm not sleepy yet, so I ain't old yet.
Yeah. What time did you have dinner? That's the real determining factor.
Had dinner yet.
Okay, then you're not old.
Ooh.
Old people have dinner at like 4:30.
He's trying to be young. He's trying to be young. He's old.
I'm old, so I am.
He's an old millennial. He's an old millennial. That's what he is.
Whatever.
I'm a young millennial, so that's all. But continue. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I mean, it's interesting to see each different facets of the generation, and I think now we're trying to do a better job at empowering and making sure that women's voices are being heard more in an age that's never happened. And I would say never happened, but it hasn't happened as much as it has been recently over the past 3-4 years. It's like a slow build to it, so it's great to see right now.
Yeah, I think, like, especially my generation, I'm a Gen Xer, and all the ones before me, I mean, I was literally told by teachers, boys don't like girls that know more than them. Stop raising your hand, or, stop interrupting. Don't be pushy. Don't be bossy. Nobody likes girls that are pushy and bossy. Well, when you get into the sports world, guess what? Everyone is pushy and bossy. And if you don't push back, you're going to get left behind. So I think we've done young women a lot of disservice with that stereotype that, if you want to be attractive to boys, if you want to be feminine, you have to be quiet and hold your tongue and don't get angry. And now we have a generation of women that are like, why do I cry every time I get mad? And we have therapists telling us you cry when you were mad because you're never allowed to express your anger in any other way when you were a child. And so I think it's something that, hopefully young girls are not getting that message anymore. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, with me being a young millennial, a young Gen Zer, oldest. So I'm either, depending on how they classified, I'm either the oldest Gen Z or the youngest millennial. But either way, I can teeter between the line and kind of, I have that filter that I understand, like you're saying, of just holding no punches. Like I don't care about any of that in the workforce. Like that has kind of, to a degree, made some people at my job look at me a little bit differently, because they like, man, he really don't be caring about any type of like navigating the waters. I'm gonna navigate the waters, but I'm gonna do it the way I'm gonna do it. And being in a company that's older, like baby boomers age, they hate that. Like that's just they hate it. Like you said, you're not happy at your job. Yeah, I'm not. Y'all not doing. Yes, I'm not happy. There's a problem here. Like they look at that like, what's wrong with him? Why is he talking about it? Like
they pull up their chart to be like, everyone said that they was doing good. What's the problem?
It's like, nah, I'm not that guy. Like I'm gonna tell you, hey, this is jacked up. This is really jacked up, and you need to fix this. Because if not, then I'm gonna be out that door. Like,
I feel like boomers put a lot of and especially coming from boomers in the Midwest, I feel like there's a lot of emphasis placed on obedience and rule following and not rocking the boat and being polite. And it's like, at the end of the day, for what? Like if you're not being intentionally cruel to people, and if you're getting your work done and you're not causing problems for your coworker, who cares what the fuck you say about it during the day? Like, what is the point of all that? It's it's messed up.
Yeah. So I've been on the wrong end of a lot of sticks there when it comes to my job.
I can imagine.
It is what it is. I'm cool with it at this point. I like being the guy that they like. Oh yeah, it's okay.
You're the angry black guy at work.
Oh,
hey, it is what it is. But when you're good at your job, they got to do something about it. That's all I'm gonna say. Just put that out.
You're right. But also, so Julie, how has it been working with Deadspin so far? Like, I believe you've been there for, is it 3 years?
Only almost. It'll be 2 years in the spring. Okay. So I came into Deadspin at a really rough time. I mean, I had lost my job in radio, and they reached out to me, and I was like, I'm not working for Deadspin, because it was right after that mass exodus, and it was a site that was important to me. I read it every day, and I really appreciated the kind of journalism they did. But at the end of the day, it's like every media outlet is getting taken over by venture capitalists. Where are these like lily white pure places that we're supposed to work? And a lot of us needed jobs, so we sort of all wound up there together, and we have a much more diverse staff. We have a lot of young writers that I think are really terrific, and I'm really proud of the issues that we tackle. I mean, we talk a lot about race, we talk a lot about COVID, we talk a lot about inequality, whether it's class or money or education or and so I continue. It's a different kind of site, I mean, we don't get to do what do we stick in our butt this year, or like any of the Williams Sonoma catalog stuff that was always so popular. And I'm glad to see that they're continuing to do that over at Defector. And we're trying to live up to their reputation and do the kind of reporting that we think is important in sports media that isn't being done enough. I mean, there's too many outlets that are tied to leagues or tied to brands and can't necessarily talk about the kinds of things that we talk about. So I'm gratified that, that we're able to do that, and that we're able to do it without interference from corporations or parent companies or anything else.
Venture capitalism is taking over everything, or they just got the money, drop the money, buy up everything, look through it. We're gonna sell it off and spend it off as this.
Yeah, and I'll say this: one of the things I really like about working there is that we have a really strong union. And I never thought that I would wind up in a union. To me, that was always like auto workers, people in factories, things like that. But I think that I never thought there would be a need for one in something like, a media outlet, but there definitely is a need, and seeing more and more companies unionize is great. And I think if you work at a job, you should be in a union.
That's a nugget right there. So for you, Julie, did you have any mentors? So I know you looked up to people like Jamel. Was there any other mentors that you have along the way that helped you navigate your career and maybe help you navigate difficult situations that you encountered throughout your time in the industry?
I was blessed for some reason with the fantastic Andrea Kramer being a friend and talking me down off some ledges. Lisa Guerrero, who once hosted Monday Night Football, once was on Monday Night Football. She's a person that I think has been through the ringer in this industry, and she is always very generous with her time and with her advice. Soledad O'Brien is someone else who's been great to me, and I have no idea why I get to, call her a friend, but she's fantastic. And a lot of teachers along the way, and a lot of women behind the scenes. Mary Dixon in Chicago, who used to be at WXRT and now is at WBEZ and is absolutely killing it on our public radio station, is someone too who I've cried on her shoulder many times, and she's sort of talked me through things that she's already been through. So I think that it's tough to find mentors in this industry because there aren't a lot of women that have been around for a long time. Like, women get moved out of this industry as soon as you're deemed no longer attractive to men, then you get moved out in a lot of ways. So these women that have stuck around, Mary Carrillo, Doris Burke, Andrea Kramer, who are still absolutely, just slaying it every single day in their jobs and are still at the top of the industry. I think that it's so great that they have been so generous in helping younger women sort of work through some of these issues. And I try to give my time as much as I can to the women coming behind me. Melissa Ludke, who was the first woman in an MLB locker room. She had to sue to get into a major league locker room. She sued Major League Baseball. She's someone that has been there for me every time, I've needed a shoulder to cry on. And so there's been a lot. And I'm really grateful for that.
Everyone needs a good mentor along the way.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, Jerome, you just get disconnected.
No, I hit the wrong button, man. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button.
I was looked like you just.
I was trying to hit the unmute, but I hit the wrong button. It just happened. I don't know. Technical difficulty. Me being, I just hit the wrong button.
Like, that's not allowed as a tech person. We're both
it
tech
is.
kids.
It is. Sometimes you have a goof moment. You like,
right.
I did that. Oops.
You're right. Well, what was you going to say? You unmuted yourself. You was about to jump in.
No. I was just saying, I was on Deadspin site and I was just kind of scrolling through some of your articles, Julie, and I was just kind of like, oh wow, like let me rephrase that. Just some of the titles that I'm like, oh, like I agree, or okay, that's interesting take. So just kind of going through it, and I seen the Calvin Ridley piece that you did, America loves the title America loves a dead celebrity, and it was like, oof, like, wait, that's a quick one. Oh, click that.
Well, the thing about that was that the same week that people were just letting Calvin Ridley have it for taking time off and saying he quit on the team and he let his teammates down, people were posting pictures of Robin Williams and talking about how much they loved him, and it's like, Jesus Christ, Robin Williams would have wanted Calvin Ridley to take the time off.
And that's something that I think it's interesting when people bring light to things like this. I mean, you're one of them. Jamel's another one. Like, when you slant the argument and it makes sense, like in the space that, there's like people like, this is hypocrisy that you're kind of trying to promote. Like, oh, like he's taking time off. Why? He cares about his mental health. So what? I want to play football. And it's
right.
Like,
it's like you might as well be tossing coins at him, like, dance, rummy, it's just
and it's like, and then I'm thinking, like, because me being a fantasy guy playing fantasy sports, I got him on my team, and I'm like, well, I mean, that sucks. But I was like, good for him. Like, the man's mental health is more important than me winning the fantasy game. I could care less about that, but I said that's good for him. Good for him. I'm like, people's like, aren't you upset? No, not really. I used to be, but now that I see it's his life. Like, he plays a game that I don't play. Like, I would hate to get hit as hard as they get hit on a daily basis. Like,
I think especially with the rise of fantasy football and with, Madden and MLB and, NBA 2K, whatever, it's, I think it's really easy to lose track of players as human beings and to see them as, players that you can control on your screen.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, an unfortunate side effect of all the gaming and the fantasy football that we've had.
Yeah. And some people lose touch of that reality, and that's something it's sad, in a lot of regards, because it's like, you realize this is fake.
Right.
It's called fantasy. Like, fantasy means it ain't real. Like, it's not real.
And he's on my fantasy team too. My first reaction was, oh shit. But then think, like, all right, let's think about the human being for a minute. And that's the step I think a lot of people are missing these days.
Yeah. The first thing I did when I seen it, I was like, I take a time off. He'll probably be back at the end of the year. I can put him back in the lineup sooner or later. Then I was like, well, let me find the next best Falcon receiver. Russell Gage. There we go. Okay, that'll be perfect.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
It's fine.
Yeah, we'll be good.
Hey, I reaped the benefit of that because I was going to get someone that would have had Kyrie, have him starting. I was like, yes, easy victory this week. Let's go. I'm trying to make the playoffs.
Oh wow! I thought your team was like 2-9.
Hey, we're not gonna talk about that, all right?
Is it still 2-9?
No, my team's recovered. They're like 5-7 right now, or 6.
But that's still not good. That's not good. You're not. There's no way you're in the playoff picture right now. There's no way.
If two teams would have lost last week, I would have been in the playoff picture.
You need too much help. That's not good in fantasy. That's not good.
It's not. But coming from where I came from, like I'm on like a 5-game winning streak right now. It's like career high right here. I'm riding the wave right now.
Well, I mean, I can't say nothing because I'm in a keeper league, so like the last 5 years have just been tank and more tanking. That's finally. We've had some progression. I'm in the playoffs this year, so yay, yay me, yay. So hopefully I can, win some money this year. Hopefully, we'll see. But
hey, keeper leagues are rough, man. I'm in the keeper league as well, and I came into it late. So like they've been running this keeper league for like the past 6 years. I just came in last year, take it over somebody. Everyone looking at me, like you easy money right now because we all got players for the past 5 years.
Well, when you pick the wrong people, I kind of.
Have you guys ever played in a keeper league that has like a really, really complicated draft structure? That I played in a keeper MLB league that had like that, like these guys have been playing together for like 10 years. They had tweaked their draft strategy so that I don't even know. I can't even explain it because I didn't understand it at all. I wound up with like the worst team. And they're just like, my friend who invited me, all his friends are like, why did you bring this stupid girl in here? She doesn't even know what she's doing. And I was like, I swear to God, I know about baseball. I just don't understand your draft rules. It wasn't a great show.
So what was it like? They had, you can only do this like around here and then you had another round
it was
there,
years ago. No, it was like you could only pick guys under certain circumstances, and it had to do with some combination of like your draft order, their last OBP, and like so it was like it was insane. And I was just like, and like after the draft, I was like, hey, you know what, I'm out. Stupid.
For us in this league, so say you draft a player, in the 9th round of the NFL draft, right? If you decide to keep that person, it will cost you a number 7th round draft pick next year. So
what?
It moves up two draft picks depending on, and you're going to keep a person for like 3 years at max.
What?
And you can't keep 2 quarterbacks. You only keep 1 quarterback.
But how many people are you keeping?
You get 3 keepers.
That's stupid.
See, I think football is a much more straightforward way to do it. It's like rotisserie baseball. Have you ever played rotisserie baseball? It's like just insanely complicated.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's like a part-time job.
Yeah, it's bad.
Baseball is hard to do in fantasy sports. Anything.
Yeah.
Like,
you gotta set your lineup every day.
Yeah. And if you got people that rest, you gotta
I was up at like 3 a.m, trolling the waiver wire. I'm like, this is no way to live.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's not.
That's why I stick to basketball and football at this point. I can't do baseball. I was like, this is it.
It's a lot.
So yeah. But I was like I said, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I had nothing. No, I was just reiterating what you were going to say. Go ahead, just say it.
The face. No, so one thing, like, since I know you have a radio background and whatnot, with the rise of the podcast platforms, do you feel as though that the radio industry is slowly starting to go away, or do you feel like the radio industry is still going to dominate no matter what?
Yeah,
see, I was going to say that.
I think people, I know I do this too. Mostly listen to radio when they're in their cars, when you're driving from one place to another. And then, increasingly, even like my kids, they don't listen to the radio in the car. They've got their iPod plugged in, and increasingly I do too. And so I think that terrestrial radio is really going to have to find some way to, I don't know. First of all, they need to expand their audience. I mean, in sports talk radio, they're like, we care about men ages 18 to 54, and that's it. So, and lineups in radio stations are mostly white men. And you've got fan bases that don't look at all like that, that have all kinds of different people in them, different genders, different races, different, ethnicities. So I don't know. I feel like a combination of, technology and the fact that stations just have not kept up with the changing demographics of the fan base is probably going to spell doom for them in the end. Probably not anytime soon, but I think there was definitely a feeling when I was working in radio and I was at 2 different stations that were like, things aren't like they used to be, like where we were like the kings, of the airwaves. And it's just not that way anymore.
And I think some of that too is, everything is so easily accessible, in the current, that's the technology piece that you speak into, but like, radio, you got to listen to advertisements unless you got Sirius XM or something like that, but who's paying for Sirius XM when you can, I could just listen to you on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, or whatever. Like, I don't need all that, and
and there's also a lot of people that are like, I want to hear about the Bulls. I don't care about the Cubs or the White Sox.
Yeah.
And so they just, turn it off, turn on a podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's to a degree, I think radio is maybe shifting to the podcast lane to a degree. Cause I feel like everybody got a podcast at this point. Like, it's just, that's like the new radio waves, right? That's just
well, I think that there's a lot of temptation to bring in people that have had really successful podcasts into radio, but then it sort of like doesn't translate because it's just live radio is just different. And you've got to interact with callers and, and so you bring someone in because they've got a great podcast where it's like, 2 buddies talking or 3 buddies, and then you put them on a radio station and it's just not the same. No. So yeah, I don't know. When I was at 670, Tony Gill, who's now at NBC Sports, and I had a podcast that we loved doing that was a true crime sports podcast. And we did 1 season on Michael Jordan's father, on the murder of Michael Jordan's father. And I think that's the kind of thing that radio needs to pivot to doing. But we just got a lot of pushback and they just, didn't think it was that interesting. And it's not what we do. And so, I think that's kind of unfortunate. I think a lot of the people making the decisions don't necessarily listen to podcasts and don't really get what the big deal is. So I don't know. I think that's going to have to change eventually.
How is Tony as an individual? I've heard many stories just by listening. Is he really
one of my favorite people in the world? Okay. Yes, he is wonderful. I never knew what was going to come out of his mouth when he was producing my show. Like, I think I found out he was a 9/11 truther on my show. He just, says things or it'll turn out like, or he won't know something super, super popular. Like he just has these weird blind spots for things that never crossed his radar. But he's like the best person and he's insanely talented. When we did the Michael Jordan podcast, the James Jordan podcast, I would just be like, I would write it and we'd record it. And then I would be like, okay, just make it sound like Serial or something. And then he would go away and he'd come back and it would sound like an honest to God, like professionally produced big time podcast. He's just really, really good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I love Tony. I love just the work that he's doing. He's the best. Incredible. Yeah.
He also would wear his Warriors hat, like his Warriors beanie to Bulls practice all the time when he's covering the Bulls.
That's what Tony wanted.
And then he had that great moment. I was like, he'd come in and he'd be like, oh, I was just at Bulls practice. And I'm like, did you wear that hat to the practice? And he's like, yeah. And then he had that great moment when James Boylan called. It was like, he asked him a question in a post presser and he's like, Tone, brother, and I never get tired of hearing that. I was just like, James Boylan called you brother. It's amazing.
That is. And I got some Jim Boylan stories. But we're not gonna talk about the Bulls.
Oh boy. I'm trying to block him out.
Yeah, that's and that man works for NBA. No, all right. Anyways, we was wondering what type of advice could you give to younger women that are trying to pursue a career in sports and they're just trying to make it in the industry?
So I think it's 2 things. The first thing I tell women is get used to asking for what you want, as uncomfortable as it is. If you're going to be, working in this industry, you're going to have men who have no qualms asking for what they want, that they've been socialized. That I think it's, get used to asking for what you want, even though it's uncomfortable. So if you want a raise or if you want a shot at solo hosting, or if you want a better time slot, or you think that you've earned the right to, try to host a show, like you need to get used to marching into your boss's office and saying, this is what I want. And here's all the reasons I think I've earned it. And I think that when you have been made to feel like you're just lucky to be there, that's really difficult for women to do. And then the other thing is, I think you need to have a crew of girlfriends that understand what you're going through. And I don't think women have that. I think that we, by and large, have been taught to sort of view each other as competition, that there's only going to be one spot and there's only going to be one woman and you want to be it. And so, when I first got into the industry, there are a lot of women that I had bad experiences with because it was sort of like backbiting and competitive. And luckily, I think a lot has changed in the past 5 years, that I think women are doing a much better job of being there for each other. And I think that is due in huge part to women like Laura Oakman, who runs a camp teaching women, how to ask questions on the sidelines of football games, and really encourages women to be there for each other and to form our own little sorority of women working in sports media. I think that's hugely important. And I know that without women like Jane McManus, my former podcast partner who writes for Deadspin, other women in the industry, that I would have had a really much tougher time. So I think that those two things are really important.
Thank you for that. And now we can go ahead and switch gears into the rapid fire round. So this is the game within the game segment, which we play and have a little fun towards and close out the podcast. So my question for you, Julie, is: are you ready to play?
I am ready. Hit me.
All right. So the first question is: chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal raisin?
Oatmeal raisin.
Let's go.
Can I say oatmeal chocolate chip? I mean, that's really the best combination.
Okay,
I'll go with oatmeal raisin.
So look, in the past couple of episodes, we've had people that says oatmeal chocolate chip. So we should have rephrased this question. So we're gonna re-ask it again because we make sure we have a clear winner. Juwan has a heart attack, so while he gets his heart together, we will I'm gonna ask this question. So I'm gonna add on some additional cookies to the list. So
okay.
Chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, oatmeal chocolate chip, snickerdoodle, or sugar cookie?
Sugar cookie.
This man, now he's happy.
I can't help it. I can't. I mean, I know it sounds stupid. It's my favorite.
Sugar cookie.
I have some downstairs. I'm going to go eat them when we're done.
I ain't mad at that. What kind? You like
the
ones with the
simplicity of it, or like sprinkles?
Yeah,
like sugar sprinkles. Yeah, it's the simplicity of it that makes it good.
It is.
Is that what it is though?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
To be fair, I wouldn't turn down any of those cookies where they offered to me.
Look. Okay. Well, that makes sense too. Okay. So your next one is TV shows or movies.
Lately, I guess TV shows. I've been to a movie for a long time. Yeah, I think like an hour long. I think that's like the optimal time to watch something.
So what shows are you watching?
Succession. Okay. Yellow Jackets on Showtime. Have you guys heard about this one? Sort of like if Lord of the Flies was a high school girls soccer team.
Huh.
It's really good. It's really good. I watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of stuff on like PBS and History Channel and stuff like that. I'm a history junkie. My husband was a history major, so we watch a lot of history stuff. Yeah, just kind of, a lot of like Datelines and 48-hour mysteries, true crime stuff. Deeply into that. And then sports around it. So.
Okay.
You guys seem so underwhelmed by my answer.
No, I'm just thinking of that show. Like because I look at a lot of shows on like Showtime, Stars, and HBO. So I'm just thinking, I'm like, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's been horribly under promoted. And I only found out about it because people were tweeting about it. And then I went and found it. So you guys should now go find it and pass it on.
I think I will see.
We got you. Yeah, we got you.
Sort of like if Lord of the Flies meets Lost. It's that kind of thing.
Okay. Sounds good.
Put it down the notes. All right. Your favorite 5 women athletes.
Martina Navratilova.
Ooh, tennis
Um,
star.
Yes. Nadia Comaneci, she was my childhood hero. She's a gymnast.
Gymnast.
Julie Foudy, U.S. soccer player. Serena Williams. Everybody loves Serena. God, I feel like there's so many to name. I love Megan Rapinoe. I love Sue Bird. Candace Parker lives, is from Naperville. I live in Naperville. So yeah. I could probably come up with a lot more if I sat here and thought about it. Oh, Jackie Joyner Kersee. I mean, growing up, like she was, every Olympics, I watched her win like 50 medals.
Literally.
Yeah. I mean, she's so many, Bonnie Blair, Simone Biles, of course. That's way more than 5.
It's all good. So I guess let me ask this, just a caveat to that question. This is not a part of the game within the game, but this is just a caveat question.
Understood.
So do you think that Candace Parker got snubbed from the Sports Illustrated, was it the person of the year, the man of the year or whatever?
Yeah. I think Naomi Osaka got snubbed. I think Simone Biles got snubbed. Like, I think there were so many better choices, especially in a year where we spent so much time talking about the mental health of athletes. And it all sort of started with Naomi Osaka. So how she doesn't wind up there, or Candace Parker doing what she did, coming back to the Chicagoland area and leading the Sky to a championship. I mean, that was such a great story. It's like, I feel like pick a woman. There was a better story out there than Tom Brady. Especially since he all his COVID stuff, like he won't wear a mask. And then he got like a PPP loan and bought $1 million boat. And it's just seriously, there's so much stuff that happened. And particularly with, the women of the WNBA continuing to lead the Black Lives Matter movement in the sports world. And there were just so many better stories out there, I think. And how you give that award to Colin Kaepernick one year, and then the next year give it to Tom Brady, I just sort of don't understand. Bad decision. Bad. We were talking about this today in our staff meeting. I think somebody's going to write about it.
Somebody should. I mean, that's definitely.
I seen that pop up on my Twitter feed, and I was like, "Oh, they just announced that today, really?"
Yeah.
I think she did get snubbed because she definitely brought a whole city, really the state, really just. That's when LeBron won in Cleveland, it just kind of. You put it all together,
exactly right. I mean, my husband isn't that into basketball and isn't into the WNBA at all, but he was downtown the day of the parade and he was calling me jumping up and down. He's like, the Sky just went by on their bus. I mean, everybody was so excited. So yeah. And plus they all wore masks, which Tom Brady definitely did not do in the Super Bowl parade, and then got COVID afterwards. And then whatever. I'm not a huge fan.
Thank you. Because there's someone on a podcast.
Well, okay, wait.
Are you a big Tom Brady fan?
I'm a Patriot fan. Okay, so Tom Brady was our quarterback. So yes, I mean, I do appreciate Tom Brady, but I do get that I feel like he shouldn't have been on the cover. I'll say that at least. Still a great quarterback. I just don't think he should have been on the cover for Man of the Year or Person of the Year.
Yeah, I think Sports Person of the Year encompasses more than just what you did in sports. I think there needs to be an outside the off the field sort of component to it. Yeah.
So I mean, I agree. So you can't just say, oh, because you got a Patriot, a Tom Brady guy. Okay, wait. It's in reason. I get, yes, I'm one of the rational fans. Okay.
I gotta give you some hard time when I can. It's hard. I gotta claim
mine's is easy.
When I can.
Mine's is easy. All I gotta do is say Bears. That's it. I won. I won already.
All right, moving on. Here.
Rex Grossman. That's all I gotta say. I won already. I won. Jay Cutler. Right. I won already.
Jay's a good quarterback. He just had a horrible coaches, horrible system.
He was.
Adam Gase was the offensive coordinator.
I just love Cutler when he threw an interception. He just flicked the helmet up on top of his head, like, I don't care, whatever happened. Like, it happened.
I don't
so
think
what?
he did care. I mean,
like, he just would walk off like, this is perfect. This guy. Woo. Oh man. Go ahead, Desmond. I'm sorry.
Good old Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Also, on the flip side of the women's, favorite 5 men athletes.
Male athletes.
Yep.
Walter Payton. I mean, I grew up right in the middle of Bulls, Bulls hysteria in Chicago. But I will say this: I always loved Dominique Wilkins. He was like the guy that I loved from another team. Gosh, who else is? God, there's so much of the. Mark Grice, my favorite player when I was a kid. My favorite baseball player. Geez, it's so hard because I'm trying to run through like all 4 sports leagues, plus like the Olympics, plus like cycling, everything that I could think of. Winter Olympics. I'll just stick with like the big 4. Dan Hampton. Okay. I was a huge Dan Hampton fan when I was a kid. Everybody, when they asked like who your favorite Bear was, it was like, who's your favorite Bear besides Walter Payton? And Dan Hampton was always mine. So that's 3. Loved Horace Grant with the Bulls.
Wow. That's a interesting pick.
Well, because you had to have a player besides Michael Jordan. Everybody loved Michael Jordan. Yeah. You know what? I got to host every like Sunday or Saturday. I got to host radio shows with my partner Maggie Hendricks and with Lance Briggs, and he was a tremendous Chicago Bear. So I'll put Lance Briggs in there too. Get them in the Hall of Fame.
Facts, big facts on that.
That's probably the only bright spot that y'all had was defense over the last.
It was never the offense. It's never the offense.
Ever the offense.
There was that brief Matt Nagy window where he was calling all these trick plays, and we thought he was like some kind of genius. And then that season ended. That was 2018. And he came back in 2019, and everything just sucked. It's sucked ever since.
Yeah, like the first 8 weeks of that season. So
yeah, and he's like, "Oh, this is the Willy Wonka. This is the Santa sleigh," and they were these plays were working, and we were like, "This is incredible!" And then it ended.
And it's still ending poorly.
Yeah, no, it hasn't recovered. Yeah, that's true.
This brings me great joy. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. If you could go pro in any sport, what would it be?
Does it have to be a sport that I played, or can it be anything? Well, I'll do both. I'll say, I think baseball is like the life. Like, I think that's like, if you can play baseball, write your own ticket. So you would be baseball. If I had to do it based on sports that I played that I was the best at, it was probably soccer.
What position?
Center midfield.
Ah. Okay.
Like it. I dig it. All right. Your favorite sports moment that you've seen or witnessed?
Okay. So I think the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016 is the obvious one, but I have this very specific memory of being in law school, and I one of the lawyers I was clerking for took me to a Bulls game, and I had been to a Bulls game in the United Center. I'd only been to games in Chicago Stadium. And we had really good seats, and I don't even remember who the Bulls were playing, but I do remember at one point, Michael Jordan got the ball at half court. He took it at the free throw line. His tongue came out. He went up in the air and did the like iconic Michael Jordan slam. And I was just sort of like, I can die happy now. I have seen the Michael Jordan dunk with the tongue and everything. And so I think that might be it. Yeah. Just loved it.
Well, you don't have to hate on that, Juwan.
No, I'm not hating on it. I mean, that's what he did.
You make a lot of faces.
He did the tongue. It's like he did the tongue thing. That's all. He did the tongue. Yeah. I'm a Kobe guy, so I'm just like, I seen it. I seen that too. Kobe did it. So
yeah, because he copied Michael.
True. I'm not going to disagree with you. He did. I could disagree not one bit.
It was, I think, living in and around Chicago during the 90s when the Bulls were just the kings of the world, it was just a really special time to be in the city.
Hadn't had too many bright spots there either ever since Bros.
Not recently. Nope.
You know?
Fun this year though. So far, so good.
Right now.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah, that's true. You know.
Am I winning this game? How do I win this?
Let's see. Are you winning? Yeah, I guess you're answering them. So yeah, I guess you are winning. You're winning. So your next question would be, what's the last book that you have read?
1619 Project.
By who?
It's great.
So
By Nicole Hannah-Jones.
Okay.
It is about the fact that white supremacy has been baked into this country since 1619 when the first slave ship landed here, and has a bunch of different chapters going through, like, you know, our healthcare system and music, and just how racism has shaped every single institution in this country. I think it's the like #1 book on the bestseller list for like the 3rd week in a row, and I think it's going to be one of the biggest books written for a really long time.
Book will be turning some pages. It's gonna be this one. Ooh, that's hot. It's hot off the press.
I see it smoking in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
I thought. So one of the final questions we have is, if you had a chance to take over any organization, who would you choose? Now, this organization, it doesn't have to be just be sports. It could be Chase Bank, because he's going to take all their money. You know, it could be the NCAA.
All their money.
Yeah, all their money. Run it. You know, your world, your choice.
I want to take over FIFA. I think it's the worst organization the IOC gives them like a run for their money in terms of like being terrible. But I think FIFA has more money, and so they're probably more terrible. And yes, I would like to take over FIFA.
That is the first time we've heard that.
Really? All right.
Oh yeah.
Well, I have less competition then. What do other people say?
A lot of people said, I've heard Dallas. You know, some people like did they passion like Red Cross. Was it Red Cross? What is it?
Oh, the Red Cross. Yeah,
it was a non-for-profit, but yeah.
I'm trying to think what else we've heard. We
heard Chase. We've heard Nike.
Amazon would be a good one.
Tesla was another one. Someone said they'll take over the U.S. government.
Yeah,
hard pass on that one.
The NCAA, the Olympic Committee, the Olympic Games.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think anything that has international reach and has a lot of money really does have potential to shape our world. And that's kind of why I reach for FIFA.
Makes sense.
It does. So
I'm starting to read, and now that I've said Amazon, though, I'm kind of starting to think about that. I'll stick with FIFA.
You could probably take Amazon and almost buy FIFA.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. You could also pay people a living wage instead of buying FIFA.
No argument here.
Yeah, I'd shut down the book section so that bookstores can come back. Just shut it down. No more books from Amazon. You want a book? You got to go to a bookstore.
No argument here.
Yep.
He's like,
yep.
Not a big reader.
No, I am. I just, when you say, yeah, you're right. Like, it's just nothing to say. Yep.
I was just talking to my brother about this the other day of, you know, how much like the digital age have affected things. Like, remember we used to have to take VHS tapes back, and we used to get a fine when, you know, the VHS tape wasn't rewind all the way, and just trying to look at me like, dude, what are you talking about?
You just said VHS tapes. You went way back, dude. Whoa.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, beforehand, look, you have to start with that, because you went from having to go somewhere to rent stuff out, so now you just one click of a button, you have it.
Yeah, I hear, but why you had to use VHS tapes though? Why you?
That's how I tell you old.
Dude, I remember when VHS tapes came out. You know what we had at my house? We had Betamax, because my dad decided that he'd been in California and Beta was huge there. So he really thought between the two, Beta was going to be the one that was really going to take off.
Oof.
So you know what that's like? It's like, remember when the App Store and Apple used to, or not on Apple, but like when people would create apps and they would only create them for Apple and there'd be just like a few things for Android. It was like that. It was like we'd go to the store and like one entire wall would be at Blockbuster would be like VHS, and then there'd be like one little section of beta, and it was all like horrible B movies that nobody wanted to see. Yeah, I'm not bitter about it.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
Thank you. You can only watch Pete's Dragon so many times, Dad.
All right, Julie, one final question, the hardest question of them all.
Okay.
Where can people go and follow you at on social media and keep up with you and your career?
Well, if I am on Twitter, it's at Julie DiCaro. I'm trying to lean more into Instagram just because it seems like a nicer place. And I think it takes more effort for people to like follow you around and say mean things on Instagram. That's also at Julie DiCaro. And you can check out my book. It's called Sidelines, Sports Culture and Being a Woman in America, wherever you get your books or at your local library. And or read me over at Deadspin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all heard it there. Go ahead, give Julie a follow and go ahead, purchase her book. And please do so. I know we will be purchasing a copy ourselves. We typically buy a copy of at least, if we know the person, has a book, we try to at least purchase the book to at least support. So I know we'll be doing
that's nice. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, of course, no problem. For all the listeners, subscribers out there, we thank you for tuning in to another episode of Capturing the Game. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at CTG_podcast. We're also on YouTube and Facebook at Capturing the Game Podcast. Julie, has been dope and a pleasure to have you on and just kind of talk and have a whole bunch of laughs for the past hour and a half or whatever, how long we've been on this podcast. But, thank you so much for hopping on and giving back some of your time.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.